So good evening, Freiburg. I don't know if you're aware of it, but we live in a dangerous world. We are surrounded by millions and millions of bacteria and viruses. They're everywhere. They're in the air, they're on our skin, they're in our food. And the only reason why we don't get sick all the time is because we have our immune system. The immune system consists of different types of cells that can recognize and destroy bacteria, viruses, worms, even cancer cells. These cells swim through our blood and they patrol our body for invading pathogens. And you might think this is an easy task to do, right? How hard can it be to tell that we have been infected? I mean, this is clearly different from our own body, right? But actually, it is pretty difficult because these are the cells of your immune system. These are the little soldiers fighting in your army. They have no eyes, they have no hands, and even if they did have eyes, it wouldn't be so easy to tell good apart from evil. This is something the cells might see when they travel through your body. And what do you think this is? Is this a normal cell? Or maybe it's a cancer cell? Or is it a cell that has been infected with a virus and is now spewing millions of virus particles? And how about this thing? Is this a bacterium that wants to make you sick? Or is it a bacterium that wants to help you digest your food? Or maybe it's just some dust. So you see, it's not that easy to tell, is it? So how does our immune system do it? Well, to explain this to you, let me introduce you to one of the cells of the immune system, the B cell. Maybe you already know these cells. These are the cells that produce antibodies, and these are the cells that work for you when you get a vaccination. So this is what they look like. They have the so-called B cell receptors on their surface. So these are proteins that help the cell communicate with the environment. They are like little hands that help the cell feel around and discover what's out there. But unlike your hands, these B cell receptors can recognize only one structure. So for example, this B cell would be able to recognize this red spiky protein, but it wouldn't be able to recognize the blue bumpy protein. And this is a problem, right? Because there's millions of different bacteria and viruses, and if we only had this one type of B cell, we would be only able to recognize this one bacterium, and all the other ones would make us sick. So what's the solution? Well, of course, to have B cells with different B cell receptors. And in fact, we have millions of B cells, and every one of them is carrying a different B cell receptor and can recognize a different bacterium. So no matter with what you get infected, there always is a B cell that can sound the alarm and tell the body something is happening. But how is that possible? How is it possible that we have so many different B cells? How is it possible that we can recognize all the bacteria that we meet at home, and also all the bacteria that we meet if we travel to foreign countries? I mean, there are a lot of bacteria out there. So how do the cells do it? So this is how your body works. If you want to make a protein, you need to have it encoded in your DNA. So every protein in your body is encoded by a stretch of your DNA, which is called a gene. And you can imagine the DNA to be like a library full with information on how to make a functional human body. So every protein in your body is encoded by your DNA, and every single cell in your body is carrying the same DNA. And now you might think, oh, this sounds strange. I mean, I have all these different cells which look different and have these different functions. How is it possible that they all have the same DNA? And the trick is that although they have the same information, they use it differently. So they read different information and only read the ones they need for their work. So that is as if a baker and a car mechanic would own the same library. The baker would read the books on how to make cakes, and the car mechanic would read the books on how to fix cars. So this is the same with your cells. The cells from your eye will read the information on how to make light-sensitive protein that helps you see, and the cells of your liver will read the information on how to get rid of the alcohol that you keep mysteriously poisoning yourself with. But all of these cells have the same DNA. They just use it differently. Now, coming back to the problem with the B cells, if you wanted to make a million different B cell receptors, you would need a million different genes. And this is certainly quite a lot. So currently, a human cell has 20,000 genes, and if you were to add a million on top of that, your cell would be chock full with DNA. It would be bursting with DNA. So this is clearly impossible to accomplish, yet we do have millions of different B cells with different B cell receptors. So how do the cells do it? So they have developed a simple strategy. Instead of encoding the B cell receptor with one gene, what they do instead is they put it together from different pieces. And these pieces are called the V, D, and J segments, and the cells have different variations of these pieces, and then they randomly assemble them and make their B cell receptor. And because this process is random, you always end up with a different B cell receptor. So in case you're now confused and you don't understand how this strategy works, don't worry, I will explain it with another example. So imagine yourself in the business of toy making. And your boss gives you 3 blueprints on how to make toys. And these blueprints have information on how to make the head, and how to make the body, and how to make the feet. And you set to work, and you make a nice business bear, and a ballerina doll, and a butterfly, and you're very happy with yourself, and you want to keep on and make new toys. But then your boss tells you, I'm sorry, but the shelf for storing blueprints only had space for 3 blueprints, so this is all you get. So what could you do now? What could you do to make more toys? You could cut these blueprints into pieces, and then you could randomly pick pieces to make new toys. And this way, you would get this wonderful butterfly bear, and you would get a ballerina doll who is also a businesswoman, and you would get a butterfly wearing baggy pants and a butterfly wearing a skirt, and you would have all these new toys, although you only have 3 blueprints. So this is exactly what the B cells are doing as well. They have these different variations of these parts, and they randomly assemble them. And if you remember your math lessons from school, if you had 3 variations for all these 3 segments, you could make 27 different B cell receptors. But if you had 100 variations for every of these segments, you could make 1,000,000 of different B cell receptors. So this would clearly save you a lot of space. You would only need 100 DNA stretches, but you could randomly assemble them and get 1,000,000 of different B cell receptors. And the second strategy the cells use is they introduce small mutations into their DNA. And by introducing mutations into their DNA, they slightly change the protein, and this way they have another new B cell receptor. So this is similar as if you would randomly doodle on your blueprint and make small changes, and then you could go from a bear to a pig. So this is what the cells are doing as well. They introduce small changes and then end up with a slightly changed B cell receptor. So these 2 strategies are so successful that we have millions of B cells carrying, and each of them carrying a different B cell receptor. So all of these cells have the same DNA, they have the same information, but because they randomly assemble their B cell receptor, and because each of them is making the decision by itself, they all end up with a different B cell receptor. And this way, you have B cells that can recognize any type of pathogen in the world. This strategy is so successful that you even have B cells that can recognize proteins that don't exist yet. So even if we get invaded by alien bacteria, we would still have a B cell that would be able to recognize this bacterium and sound the alarm. But maybe now you can see the problem, right? I mean, if you produce something by just randomly assembling parts, you might end up with something you don't want. If you randomly assemble doll parts, you might end up with this. I mean, it's hideous. Nobody would want to play with that. And this is the same for the B cells. They might end up with a B cell receptor they don't like. So a B cell receptor we don't like is one that recognizes our own protein, because our own cells are also made out of protein, and if a B cell binds to any of these proteins, it will target the cell for destruction. So nobody wants an army like that, right? Nobody wants an army that destroys all the enemies, but then continues on and destroys all the friends as well. So, there must be a strategy for how to silence these cells or how to remove them. And this is where things get a little bit difficult and complicated, but what the cells of your immune system do is that after they have recognized a protein, they don't attack right away, but first they analyze the situation. They ask a lot of questions. They ask, for example, was there a wound when I saw this protein? Was the skin broken? Did I see a lot of it or just a little? Was it just freely floating around, or was it on the surface of something? Did other cells see this as dangerous as well? And this is what we are studying in my lab, and this is what a lot of labs in Freiburg study as well. We are trying to understand how B cells receive information, how they communicate with other cells, how they analyze this information, and then how they make their decisions. And if you understand the language of the immune system, this is very useful because you can talk back to your immune system. You can tell it what to do. And this can be useful in many different types of diseases. So, for example, during autoimmunity, if you're suffering from an autoimmune disorder, such as lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, or multiple sclerosis, what happens in your body is that the immune system misunderstood something, that it misunderstood some information, and it's now attacking your own cells. And similar in allergies, if you get an allergy, your immune system misunderstood some situation, and now thinks harmless stuff such as dust and pollen is actually dangerous. So what you want to do is you want to tell your immune system just to quiet down. And this is exactly what you're doing if you get an anti-inflammatory drug. This is your way of telling your immune system just to shut up, keep it quiet. This is not as dangerous as you think it is. And then on the other side, there are diseases where you want your immune system to be more active. So every time you get an infection, every time you, for example, get the flu, what happens is that your immune system either didn't recognize the pathogen or decided it's not dangerous or was just too slow in responding. So what you want to do here is you want to tell the immune system to be more active. And this is exactly what you're doing when you get a vaccination. When you get a vaccination, you get injected with a tiny piece of protein, and this is basically a heads up to your immune system. It tells your immune system, this is dangerous, you might see it in the future, get ready. So then later on, when the immune system really sees the real pathogen, it will respond much faster and much stronger. And so vaccinations are the most elegant type of treatment there is. I mean, think about it. If you're treating an infection with antibiotics, you have to take antibiotics maybe twice a day for several weeks, and the moment you stop taking them, you are not protected anymore. But this is completely different with the vaccination. Most of the time, it's enough to be injected one time, and then you're protected for years to come. There's no need to retake any medication. There's no need to stuff yourself with chemicals, and you are still protected. And the best thing is that you are protected no matter how often and when you meet the dangerous bacterium. So this amazing type of therapy is only possible because we understand what the immune system sees as dangerous, because we know how to talk to the immune system. And lastly, your immune system is also able to fight cancer. It is also able to tell that cancer cells look kind of weird, that they are behaving strangely, and is able to destroy them. But sometimes this doesn't work. Sometimes these cancer cells show basically stop signs to your immune system. They have learned to talk to your immune system and they are trying to trick it into believing that they are not harmful. And there are new types of therapies that are currently being developed and used where we can destroy these stop signals, where we can prevent the cancer cells from talking to the immune system. And then the immune system stays active and destroys these cancer cells. And this therapy was so revolutionary and so amazing that the two researchers, James Ellison and Tasuku Honjo, who have pioneered this field, are going to receive the Nobel Prize of Medicine for these findings in 2 days. So you see, you have a great friend in your immune system. It can protect you from infections, and it can help you fight cancer. It can keep you safe in this dangerous world. And sometimes you just need to talk it out of doing stupid stuff. Thank you for listening.